Welcome to the Campus Countdown and happy Veterans Day. On this week's episode, one California professor uses a pro-Bernie Sanders and pro-socialism webpage as a teaching example in her coding class. The webpage featured a raised fist and other socialist propaganda. We also have guest correspondent Kate Anderson to discuss a new definition of intersectionality that includes right-handed privilege. Also on this week's episode, more conservative advertisements on campus are destroyed. I'm Addison Pummill, and this is the Campus Countdown. For our number 3 story of the week, the Young Americans for Freedom chapter at the University of Virginia recently posted flyers all around campus advertising an event with alumni Chip Roy and National Review editor Rich Lowry for a discussion on the historical legacy of Thomas Jefferson. As the UVA YAF Twitter account details, over half of these flyers had been torn down, defaced with false statements, or covered up by Divest UVA's call for fossil fuel divestment within just one day of being hung up. On one side, the phrase, "In defense of Mr. Jefferson," was crossed out and replaced with a vulgar joke about the genitalia of club members. Another sign was vandalized with the phrase, "Racists defending rapists." The tweet also notes that for this exact reason, it is now more important than ever to protect Jefferson's legacy. The vandalism that occurred at UVA follows the national trend of hypocrisy from left-wing students and an absolute intolerance for diversity of thought. Recently, Campus Reform has reported on countless instances of conservative student groups facing vandalism, while of course liberal and left-wing propaganda remains untouched. Check out last week's episode of the Campus Countdown to hear correspondent Ben Ziesloft discuss conservative chalking destroyed at Central Michigan University. Now, the issue here is the blatant respect that students from certain groups have for the free speech and property of other students. The students responsible for this vandalism clearly do not value diversity of thought on the UVA campus. Also, I can't imagine the outrage that would have been caused if the roles were reversed here. If a conservative defaced posters for a liberal student group's event, the university by now would have launched a full-fledged investigation into the vandalism, probably complete with its own anti-vandalism task force or something along those lines. There is in fact a lack of equal representation that affects conservative student groups on campus, whether it's subtle in the form of bias from university administration or quite obvious as can be seen here in the blatant destruction of conservative club advertisements. Now for our second story of the week, I'm excited to introduce Campus Reform correspondent Kate Anderson to tell you why left-handed people are oppressed.
Thanks, Addison. Earlier this year at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, Greek life participants were forced to attend an intersectionality seminar in which a wide range of topics were discussed. One such topic was the notion that right-handed individuals like myself possess a certain degree of privilege. Campus Reform obtained a copy of the contract in which the speaker, Christina Parley of Social Responsibility Speaks, was paid $4,000 in order to give her speech on right-handed privilege. A UNC spokesperson also told Campus Reform that the event was funded by fraternity and sorority membership fees. In her seminar, Christina Parley discusses right-handed privilege and how she believes it gives them easier lives and more opportunities than their left-handed counterparts. She also cites grocery stores as systems of oppression to short people because they cannot reach the top shelves at the store. Finally, she concludes that an obese passenger having to buy 2 airline tickets is a further example of intersectionality. Now, we know that right-handed and left-handed individuals is not the real issue here, nor is the fact that short people can't reach the top of the grocery shelves. The real issue here is the large amount of funds used to pay someone like Christina Parley to discuss an obscure topic like right-handed privilege. It just seems absurd. Is this really what UMC wants their students to be wasting their time and money on? We know that there is a never-ending desire for university administrations to divide their students in the name of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But they seem no longer satisfied to stop here, to stop with religion, to stop with their race, to stop with their political party. Now higher education has moved into a new era where we must further divide our students by their dominant hands, their height, and their seating needs on airplanes. Parlay's seminar might as well have been called A Guide to Marginalize Everyone. And at the end of the day, Christina Parlay and the administrations know that being right-handed has nothing to do with success. It's simply a way for leftist administrators to push their agenda on young, impressionable students and force them to believe that they are somehow victims of a perceived injustice. And they can make a quick $4,000 while they're at it.
Thanks, Kate. I guess I'll add my right-handed privilege to the long list of physical traits that I'm supposed to apologize for. Now, our top story of the week takes place at the University of Central Florida, where instructor Rachel Winter used a Pro-socialism Bernie Sanders webpage as an example for a coding assignment in her class Front-End Web Design. The webpage, called the Socialism Hour, features a raised fist, a definition of socialism, and a description of the political philosophy of Senator Bernie Sanders. The webpage says, "Socialism is a political movement founded on the idea that a just society equitably distributes resources to all citizens." The page also explains the beliefs held by socialists, including valuation of cooperation and unity, and the belief in the ability of humans to work together for a greater purpose. One student told Campus Reform that professors such as Winter prey on the minds of young, impressionable students. And unfortunately, this type of situation is not uncommon in today's higher education. Although universities might boast that they foster an environment of diversity and open discussion, professors across the country are using their position and curriculum to force their leftist ideology onto their students. Last week, Campus Reform reported on a women's and gender studies professor at Rutgers University who used her platform to call white people villains and say that they kind of deserve the current declining birth rate. A document obtained by Campus Reform via a public records request reveals that Professor Cooper will earn at least $114,000 from Rutgers this year. These professors have worked out a great system. Funded by student tuition, they're making money to push their own political beliefs on the classroom and to indoctrinate students. I mean, look at what Kate just told us. $4,000 to tell people that left-handed people are oppressed? It's absurd. And it's no secret that there is a huge imbalance of liberal and conservative professors in academia. I'm not necessarily against professors teaching students about their liberal views, but students should have the opportunity to hear both sides and then make an educated decision on how they choose to proceed. Our woke tweet of the week comes from one UC Berkeley English professor who tweeted her definition of fascism as it relates to the course decisions in transgender transitions. The tweet reads, "A fascist is a partisan of an ideology advocating biopolitical control of bodies in the service of normative, usually racial ideals." This professor responded to her own tweet, saying, "The construction of normative sex characteristics emerged as a key strategy of colonial white supremacy, but even if it wasn't so, requiring courts to sign off on transition is fascist." This professor argues that the biopolitical control of bodies is the underlying theme of fascism, so then I would argue, according to her definition, that vaccine mandates are a byproduct of fascism. Before throwing around harsh words such as fascism and white supremacy, I would urge this professor to take a look at the values and policies of her own political party. Well, those are all the stories we have for you this week. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to follow along with all of the liberal abuse in higher education on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter by following us at Campus Reform. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Campus Countdown. I'm Addison Pummill. Thanks for watching.